Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband Jim. And it is Sunday evening, and we are getting ready to talk about artificial intelligence. Actually, we're going to do something just a little bit different. It's something that feels both a little bit exciting and a little unsettling. We're actually going to talk about the explosion of AI tools in education. So, everywhere you turn, there's like a new app that's promising you that it's going to save teachers all this time and it's going to like do lesson planning. It's going to give you all this feedback. It's going to give you these behavior reports. And we're kind of the opinion that I'm not 100% sure if they're going to be around for a long time. So we're going to actually explore what's happening with all this cutting edge technology and what happens when it meets the everyday realities of what's happening in schools. Like schools need things like stability, and there's always a challenge about these tight budgets that are going on. And then you watch this, it's really frustrating whenever you watch this promising tool that you might be like really used to and you've been using it for a while, and then it kind of goes away because the company goes under.
Okay. Oh, we're going to mention My Big Campus again.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I
Are
have
you
to.
ever going to let that go?
No, I'm not. And the reason it's not because of a decision that you made. I mean, you
Yes,
were
it
the
is.
technology director and you made the decision to put My Big Campus at Llano Independent School District. You thought it was a great tool. The teachers were trained on how to use it. It had like a
And I
Facebook.
piloted it.
You piloted it. It had a Facebook look and feel. I was a fourth grade teacher at the time. But it's not your fault because you're not the only technology director that adopted this tool. I mean, this tool was in a lot of districts, different school districts. But
Yes, and not only that, I got to know the CEO of the company. I visited with them at TCEA. I talked to other people. I did the pilot. I did all the due diligence I could possibly do. I even looked at the companies to see whether or not they had a viable, because they didn't start out in that space. This was long before large language models, but
right,
they
it
didn't
was it was
start out.
years ago. I mean, it was like in
Yeah,
2010. I mean,
yeah. It's been
yeah,
a while.
it was a long time ago. But what happened was, we walked in one day after using it for a couple of years and the company had completely gone away. So it is very frustrating whenever you have all of these companies and it's startups, right? It's literally
It is.
startups.
It's the name of the
So
game in startups.
it is absolutely the name of the game. So we're going to spend just a little bit of time and we're going to talk. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my other screen. And I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually interview you. Okay.
Yeah. Before we do, though, I do have some headlines that I wanted to bring to bear. Now,
That's fine.
is that interrupting the flow of your interview,
It
or should
might.
I go over that?
Let's go through the interview and
Okay.
I'm going to ask you these questions that we kind of put together. Okay. And then after that, if we have time, we can hit those headlines. All right. So
Before we go on, we were going to have a guest tonight, but somebody was painting and all over Austin. And I think you also went to, what did you go to in Austin? You were on a panel.
yes.
So between all of those things, it just kind of got away from you.
Okay, so this last week was our spring break, and so I went down to Austin on Wednesday, and we started painting our coming up in July. We're going to have our first grandchild, a granddaughter, and so I started painting the nursery, and then painted it all day Thursday, and then I was on a panel discussion with two very lovely ladies that are part of like AI, and they're really like thought leaders in artificial intelligence. It was at a luncheon that I was at, and it was a lot of fun. Lasted about 3 hours. Ended up a lot of people were there, a lot of great conversations, and went back and painted some more. But long story short, 100% completely lost track of time. Even though I had reminders set and everything else, I was in Austin. I wasn't in my regular routine, and I completely messed up. So I am looking forward to rescheduling, and we're going to have her on hopefully in the next couple of weeks. It's an educator that does some amazing things in her classroom. So now
I just had to give you a hard time about that.
well, yeah. Okay. We'll talk about once we're not being
Well,
recorded. I'm going to have to
I bet you will.
yeah. Uh-huh.
No violence.
Uh-huh. So I'm going to go ahead and interview you instead, if that's okay.
Yep, I'm done giving you a hard time for now.
Okay, I'm glad. So you have actually worked at like education and technology for 20 years now, right?
Longer than that,
And
if you count what I did before as an educational. I mean, I traveled around the world educating people as well, but K-12 education for the last 20 years, yes.
that's what I'm talking about. The specificity of being K-12 education and
Yep.
technology. And you've seen all of the technologies that have been introduced into education for a while now. So here's AI. What feels different to you about the current wave of AI tools that are flooding into our school systems? Because everywhere we turn, somebody has added AI component to every single tool that's out there. What's different?
Fast and furious, I think, is the term.
Okay.
It's mainly different because it. I don't mind the hype. Every new tool, every new thing that comes out, first rule of marketing: be first. If you can't be first, make up a new category and be first in that. I get it. I get that, but the transition from analytics and security cameras or various other ways that machine learning and AI had been used before, the pace was just unbelievable. And there was companies literally overnight. I wasn't even working on language models. I was just working on a chatbot in Teams when ChatGPT, I got early access to ChatGPT, and I changed my direction because it gave me the ability to do something I couldn't do without a lot of coding.
Yes,
so I didn't see it as
4 o'clock in the morning. You changed your direction. 4 o'clock in the morning.
Me time to.
Hey,
yes, I did. It was
fair play. Turnabout's fair play.
It was early. Anyway, so the hype cycle, the speed of adoption. I mean, some of the fastest adoption in the history of technology. But schools don't tend to move fast. I've had a teacher tell me once that all I have to do is kind of slow roll it and wait long enough and something will change and they'll all change their mind about what they want me to do anyway.
Right. That tends to happen like if you have a new administrator come in, it's like, oh, we're going to do the 5E model, or we're going to do the turn and learn, or and then you're like, okay, I'll just kind of take my time because you're probably not going to be in your position for very long because we go through principles. It's true. It's true.
Kind of the attitude.
Okay, so a lot of the tools are being marketed as game changers. They generate the lesson plans in seconds. They write the student reports instantly. Do you think we're focusing too much on what's flashy and not enough on what's sustainable? Because see, that's what I'm concerned about, is that we have all these people out there that are like just grabbing the bicycles that have the training wheels on them, and they're not actually getting trained and getting the knowledge to sustain. What do you think?
My problem with it from day one, when these companies started popping up, I started looking at the companies and going, that's really not that difficult to do. I mean, the companies that do the lesson plan generators that you mentioned, I built an iteration of that in 2023 with my chatbot, literally.
And and like the prompt libraries, those things, you go in and you have all these prompt libraries.
They're everywhere. I mean, there's prompt libraries all over the place. That's why I never felt like there's a sustainable business model. And based on my big campus experience, I'm very careful about the sustainability of what I get. I buy things. I don't mind getting things from startups. If our inventory tracking system came from a startup, but I've always got a plan B option out to make sure that if they go away, that I have the way to export the data. I've got a backup as to what I can put it in. So when I felt like I need a backup for those other kinds of tools because they just didn't seem that difficult.
Well, and that kind of leads me to that next question that I was going to ask you. The next question is basically, you're trying to balance the promise of this innovation with the reality that a lot of the companies aren't going to be around in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, so, look at that. I mean, let's go to headlines for a second. That's a good segue into one of the headlines. Y Combinator, which is where a lot of these small startups get their money from. They're kind of the go-to. I'm assuming the dogs are in there, considering how much noise I just heard.
That was a caller. That was a caller.
That was really loud.
Oh, sorry.
anyway, when you look at them, they right now they say they have the fastest growing, most profitable fund in history because of AI.
Uh-huh.
And they talk about it, how you don't need all these engineers, that everybody with a great idea can, you mentioned it when we were talking about this earlier. There's this prediction of the first $1 billion startup that has one person working for them.
Right.
And so agents, which are coming next, agents that are, everybody wants to do, those are another way that they claim this is going to happen. So you've got this ability for anyone with an idea to start trying to implement that idea. But you can't get away from the reality that, which is the next headline, most companies don't make it out of that first stage, just like the Mike and Big Campus people did. 50% fail in the first. Can you take that ball away from her just temporarily?
It's okay, Jim.
It's so loud.
Our guests love it. Come on.
Do they?
Sadie's
Okay.
going to become the mascot of our podcast. So Sadie's doing just fine.
Okay. Anyway,
Keep
50% failed in the first year, 90% within 5.
Uh-huh.
So that reality was long before AI came into the picture. Well, now you've got companies that can it reminds me of when we have a hailstorm in Texas.
All
what
the
happens
pop-ups.
after a hailstorm?
Tents
Literally
everywhere.
Literally tense. They pop up and they repair hail damage, which means they slap some. And I'm not belittling these companies. I'm not saying that all of them are not doing things. I'm a big fan of Khan Academy but I was always a big fan because they didn't have a profit and loss statement like a typical business. They had one like a nonprofit. I mean, they were a nonprofit. So, but with AI, they're now having to charge because the cost. They can't just record a video now. They've got that cost that everybody does. So even them, I'm worried about whether or not they can sustain it in the long term.
Right. Well, that kind of leads to the next thing. Like a lot of the tools are built on the same underlying AI, right? They all have the big guys in the background, and they just change, they change the wrapper. So do you think it's harder, or do you think it's becoming harder to tell what's genuinely new versus something that's just really well marketed? And I know what I'm leaning toward when it comes to, because I don't see how they're able to stay up with the latest, greatest large language models that are out there.
They really can't. The problem is that if you look at the different, like we use an API base, which means I can talk to OpenAI and all their models, and I can choose. But that means I can choose the best model for the best thing, and I literally label the model, this is the cheapest one for text only, or this is the one you generate in. So I can tell the teachers in the name of the model what it's good for. So I can allow the teacher to have the option to help save us money.
Oh, that's huge.
What these guys have to do is they have to balance that. So they have to pick a model, and they're all cloud-based, and they're picking cloud-based models. I doubt any of them are running them locally. They're probably using a tool like OpenRouter in the back end, so it can help them decide which model is going to be the best based on criteria. But at the end of the day, they have to evaluate which models they can make money on. Like, they can't use 4.5. It costs $75 for 1 million tokens. It costs less than a penny for some of the other ones. So I'm not saying I'm going to use that one because it's too expensive, but I have the choice, and I can let the teachers help me. We found a long time ago with education that if you tell teachers about you're trying to save money, they will help you save money.
Well, and that's something else that's kind of down here. It's like, right now schools, they're dealing with these really tight budgets, right? And it's it's getting a lot
officially tightened budgets.
It's getting a lot worse. It really is. And they also have tech fatigue, as we call it. I mean,
that's a big one.
They get new technology thrown in the classrooms all the time. And unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with the administration that's there. I mean, if you have an administrator that comes in that is tech savvy, and I know this happens a lot with software. Well, at my old school, we used this software.
I love that phrase.
Oh, at my old school, we did this, or at my old school, we had Macintoshes, or at my old school.
What was one of the first images you used Dolly to generate that we put into some of our very first presentations? Remember the teacher with the big pile of papers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was like exhausted, head down on her desk with just piles of paper. And it's because there's always something new they want you to learn. And it's
Throw
not
it on
just
the pile.
well, and it's not just the hardware that they tend to want to come in and change out the hardware. It's
No, it's
software
usually
too.
the software.
It's usually the software. And
And
so, you've got these tight budgets, you've got this tech fatigue. So how do you think you should approach adopting AI tools when the business models behind them are still kind of like trying to figure things out? It's still in flux. So, what tools should a school adopt? I mean, how do you know? How do you know it's going to be there?
well, first of all, you don't. I mean, you
Uh-huh.
could take the tack that a lot of schools take. I'm going to use Google's AI. I'm going to use Microsoft's AI because they're not going away. Even OpenAI is burning through cash. Microsoft has other cash resources coming in. So does Google.
Right.
So Anthropic. And Anthropic is backed by Amazon, and Amazon's also in the AI space. These companies are never going away.
But
The
they're
problem is,
expensive.
well,
I mean,
it's
it's
not
almost
just that they're expensive.
$35 a person for the Microsoft stuff if you get it all. If
Let's
you get
assume
it.
for the moment that you were flush with cash and you didn't care,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, doesn't describe any school district ever. But let's assume for the moment you had the money to pay for those, which I've met school districts that do. The problem is that they're not going to give you the latest cutting edge stuff. They can't. They're
Right.
not going to give. They've got to have a lot of things in place to make sure it's behaving. They get hammered on every time it does something wrong. They got lawyers lined up ready to sue them if they say something wrong in their answers. I mean, it's just they tend to give you. You and I talked about that early on too. They give you the vanilla version. That was one of our biggest concerns, was that what we were going to get from those companies was the vanilla version.
Right.
So
It gets watered down before it gets to education.
So the way I thought that we would solve this is to allow the districts control.
Okay.
If the company goes away, the Agnes AI toolbox that we have, because we use a tool in it for routing as well, I can decide whose model I use. If OpenAI went away tomorrow, it literally would have no impact.
And see, that's a big thing because teachers do start loving a tool. Like if you have a tool that you put in there and you train your staff on how to use it and you show all these workflows and you build all your workflows around these tools, and then the company disappears or it gets bought, which that has happened before, where something's gotten bought out by a larger company. And yeah, they might keep the little educational portion of it for a while, but then pretty soon they're going to see that the educational portion is not where their bread is buttered. And so it goes away.
Or what are they going to do to their pricing?
Oh, or they're going to increase the pricing for education. Yeah.
We see it all the time. As soon as these little companies become bigger companies, the price doubles, triples, and sometimes it takes a couple of years. Sometimes it's literally from 1 year to the next. I've seen it over and over again. They get bought out by big companies. They want to get better margins. Why not squeeze schools? Because everybody thinks schools have money, apparently. And so all of a sudden we wake up one morning and you and I are doing the budgeting for next year. How many times have you ever not had one of these software services go up?
Oh,
they all go
every
up.
single year. Every single year
time.
I have to put a certain percentage. I've only been in the technology department, back in the tech department. This will be my third budget cycle, I think it is. And already I'm like, nope, I've got to put in like a 10 to 15, 20% pad on every single one of these softwares because it goes up every single year. But what I have started doing is and I'm going to say it because I have owned my own business for a long time. Even before I was in education, I owned a restaurant. I understand what it means when I say return on investment. A lot of times schools don't look at it that way. They don't see it that way. But literally, it is, what are you paying for what you're getting? And yes, you're paying for a product, but then how many people are actually utilizing that product?
We went all the way back to a product we had. It was a video on demand product. I won't say what it was, but we had it. I got it probably 8 to 15 years ago. It was a great product.
Yeah.
The problem is that stair-step pricing kept going up just a little bit every year. Well, it finally got to my trigger point where I looked at it and go, this is too expensive. And so I started pulling how many people were using it, because I was being assured every time I talked to the teachers, they're like, oh, yeah, we use it all the time. But when I actually pulled the numbers, I had realized that the first couple of years, it was gangbusters. It was,
Right.
I mean, our percentage wise, we had, even then, though, even best case, we probably had a 40% adoption. But by the time I pulled those numbers again, my adoption was down to 10% or less.
Mhm.
And so I canceled the product, and I warned everybody I was doing it, canceled the product. That 10%, I thought they were going to, I really think I got burned in effigy. I really do. I mean, I went over to the elementary school to tell them, because they made me go tell them I was canceling it because the principal was afraid.
Mhm.
And they were hostile. It was like being
But
at a, it was like
but the
being at a Tesla.
district cannot afford. I mean, it was
Couldn't
like
afford it.
$7,000 a year, probably, which is
It was
like the sweet
8,000.
spot. How much?
It was 8,000. And you know what the numbers came out to? $1 per video was how much we were actually paying for those people to use it. Because if you amortize the price over the people using it, or you multiplied it out and said, okay, I got this many people using it, I'm paying this much, so I divided that out. It was costing $1 per every view of the video.
Well, then why didn't you keep it? Because that's actually fairly cheap.
It isn't when it adds up to. It still added up to $8,000 or $10,000 a year.
Oh, okay. All
There
right.
was such a
Well, I
small
know
number.
I did this recently with it's an annotation software that everyone really likes.
You
And
can say what it is.
okay, Cami.
We
Uh,
like that.
Cami is a great piece of software. And what I finally had to do, which I don't think a lot of school districts are doing this, is that I like pulled the data and I see who my users are. I see who's my super user. How often do they use it? How often is it opened? And, so forth, so on. And the first time I pulled the data 3 years ago, when I went to put it back into the budget for next year, we didn't have that many people using it. And
Not
they wanted
enough.
not enough. It
Not
came out
enough.
to where I was basically paying like $200 a year per user. And I'm like,
Because it was so few.
yeah, because there were so few. And so what I did is I actually went to the people who were currently using it.
You took
And
a better approach than I did.
I said, hey guys, if you want to have this again for the next school year, you're going to have to get some of your friends and family to start using this product. So my return on my investment, or the district's investment, has gotten a lot better with that piece of software. So I can keep justifying it in my mind to keep it in the budget. But I think this is what's happening. And I've actually talked to several districts who are in these subscription based services, and they are like kind of thinking, I'm paying a lot per month for these guys, and I'm just not seeing the usage that you had hoped or they had hoped to see. So I think that they're shifting from those subscription models to a usage-based pricing, or a pay per output or a per student interaction. Is that what they're going to have to do for them to
Well,
is that what's creating that flexibility, or is it just going to be like more unpredictability for the schools? Do you see it switching? The reason I say this is because, okay, we created Agnes, and I love Agnes. If anyone's out there listening, we're looking for seed money. We're looking for startup capital. We're getting ready to take Agnes and, start selling her into other districts.
Hold on. Here's the deal, though. First of all, we don't have to have seed money. The difference between us and these other companies is they've gone through that fast hiring stage. They've really started hiring people, so they've got to have more money to sustain payroll. They got all these things going on. I probably did it the wrong way, but I come from a different generation. In my generation, when you built a company, you built it to last. You didn't build it just to get out of it as quick as you possibly could. Most of these SaaS startups, they've changed the whole face of Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley used to be about creating the next big thing, but the next big thing stuck around. I mean,
right
now it's like, okay, I don't care if it's here. I just care if I get my money. And I'm not saying all these startups are doing that. I'm saying that we built a product, and again, I built it on my own time. So the school didn't pay for it, but the school gets the benefit because I believe in this product. Because if I go away, if OpenAI goes away, if any of these companies stop, you literally just switch to something else. So it's got that long-term sustainability, reliability that I wanted in a product. And anyway, I'm very
I
passionate
understand.
about it,
And,
mainly because I spent lots of hours on it.
you spend so much time on it. I mean,
I do.
it's ridiculous how much time you spend. And I would like to save money. I mean, we've put
I know.
quite
It
a bit,
doesn't matter.
quite a bit of
It
money
doesn't
into
matter.
it. But what I was trying to get at was the reason that I like Agnes is because you literally put in the hardware, you put in the IT stuff around it so that you can manage it, and then you create the users and you only pay for what they use. You're not
Mm-hmm.
paying a monthly subscription. Do you see other companies going that way? Are they just in it to get out what they can get, and then they're just going to go away after a while?
Sorry, but
You're fine.
um, the answer to your question is they can't go to that model.
They
They have
can't
to stay where they're at.
because
They can't.
they grew so fast. They have so much overhead now that they can't bring it back down.
No, it's not just their overhead. They can't go to that model because they can't make enough money. If you want to get seed money, you have to have a path to $1 billion or $100 million or something. You have to be a fast grower. You cannot do that and not chart. You want a subscription model. There's a whole model that SaaS built up over the last 10 or 15 years around this idea of getting everybody to subscribe. It's like a gym. Everybody subscribes. Everybody joins the gym in January. Nobody shows up in March. Same kind of thing. If you get the whole district, even if you just charge for, they could try to break it up between staff and students. They want to charge by the student because there's a lot more students than staff. So either way, though, they have a cost associated with it that they have no control over. They're trying to get that control by putting in some of these back end routing tools, like I've done. They want to allow them to go to cheaper models, but they're going to the model that's cheaper because they're not necessarily have to go to the model that's better. What I want to do is say, you know what, if you don't want to touch it and you want it to put in, we've got something that can be installed. We can set it up for you. We can put it in there. It's great. It works.
I think that's a
And you don't
problem
have
that
to
you
touch it.
run
You
into,
don't have to touch
Jim.
it. You don't have to
Jim,
touch it. But hold on. But if you want to do it yourself, because we're not there tomorrow, you can. You have the option of either one. That's the point.
yeah, because I think that you do have a lot of people in school districts that even if they are technical, they're not an engineer. I mean, they're not as
They're also
technical
busy.
as you
They're also
are,
busy.
and they're busy. They can't get their PhD in everything between
Yep.
student information systems and phone systems and security cameras
Networks
and
and
networks
computers
and the
and
doors and everything else. They don't have a technology department, especially in the medium to small schools. And that's to me why Agnes is so important. And that's also why AI Education Professionals has started a nonprofit, because I would love to get benevolent funding and funding from locations so that we can start putting this into some of those schools that are underfunded, that there's no way they're ever going to have artificial intelligence in their district because they
or they're going
cannot
to have
afford.
they're only going to be able to use the free stuff, which means they're not going to get the big,
Right.
the good models and access to the models.
Right.
The main thing I was going to say about the cost thing that I really like about the way we did this is it's somewhat linear instead of these stair step functions where people can just radically change your price, because you're basing it on who's using it and not on this larger number that they have to base theirs on. So if, for example, the cost of a particular API that these other software as a service, these cloud models these cloud companies are using, what we call the wrapper companies, if they have a big increase in price, they may or may not be able to adapt and still make money.
Right.
I just don't see how they're going to make a billion, or somebody could come in and copy their product. I built the prompt library piece because I really didn't think it was that important, but you told me it was. I put it in. I spent a little over a day and a half. I don't even typically build front ends and stuff, but I literally used an AI to help me build the prompt library, and it actually looks pretty good.
I think it looks great.
I did it on a weekend. Like,
Yeah.
okay, there goes Friday night and Saturday. If it can be put together that quickly,
Right.
and I'm not saying mine's as good as the ones that have $40 million in backing because they got a lot of people working on it, but it's probably good enough.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if I can do it that quickly, how long is it going to take for everybody? And plus, all those ones like they have, they're all like it's such an eye chart. There's so many of those little lesson things and stuff all over. I don't like something that busy, and everybody's just their way of differentiating is to plow more and more of those prompt templates on their on their homepage.
I personally think it's a disservice to the teacher. I know
too.
that there are a lot of teachers out there. In the long term, it's a disservice to the teacher because they're not really learning how to communicate with an AI. And, if you come in tomorrow and that subscription based service is no longer there, flashback to my big campus, then your training wheels are gone and you haven't learned how to ride the bike. So to me, it's important.
Even if AIs get smarter, there's still some kind of learning curve for you to. If the learning curve could become you being comfortable with it, and that's what you're calling training wheels, is just a way of getting comfortable with it.
And that's why a lot of times I tell my teachers when I go out and do trainings, absolutely get one of these wrapper programs, get the free version of it. It's a great way to get your feet wet. I 100% think that's fine, but you need to go ahead and learn how to use artificial intelligence because it changes so fast. I mean, just the other day when I was doing the panel discussion, we talked about how a while ago it was, prompt engineering. And now there's a thing called like cascade prompting to where, you learn a different way to discuss things. You don't tell it to be the expert on what you're talking about until after you get the conversation started. And then you tell it, oh, well, what if you were an expert in biology or whatever conversation you're having?
I've been doing this for 3 years, and I literally use that technique today.
Right.
And because I was using the voice interactive. Anyway, we're about to run out of time. The main thing that I wanted, I won't do another one of these where we're plugging our own product. I'm not plugging it because I'm trying to sell our product. I'd like to sell our product because I'd like to work on it full time and retire, but that's not, I'm not saying that I'm immune to the desire to make money. What I'm saying is that I'm passionate about it because I think the approach that they're spending so much money on these tools with companies that can go away tomorrow. They don't have the cost control. They don't have the privacy features. They don't have the maintainability. They've got a pinky swear that I'm not going to train on your data. But guess what? When they start trying to make money and they realize they're going to go under if they don't, the temptation to use that data, because I promise you, I'm going to train on your data, but it's going to be on our model and we're not going to let anybody else. That promise is not going to hold up in the long term. Somebody is going to could decide that they do it all the time. Even the big companies get sued for it eventually. So my point is I created this as a school district technology director, as an engineer, as a wife who's in the district. I've ran the technology department for a long time. I cannot imagine how you could do it any other way if you want to have a roadmap to the future instead of always ending up with the yesterday's tools at prices you can't afford, getting locked into vendors you can't get out of. All of that goes away with this kind of thing. And you can, once we install, if you don't want us to help you with it, once it's installed, you can run it on your own. But if you want a zero touch view of it where you want it, that's what we've got the people to help us do that.
Right.
And everybody that works with us is some way attached to education. So we do understand the problems.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree.
I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Okay, so I ranted last time, and now you're on your soapbox this time. So let's do that. We'll just start taking turns. We'll start going back and forth.
We've got a teacher next week, remember?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I get it rescheduled. So what do we have coming up in the last couple of minutes that we have to go here? We have the Hudson Tillotson University. We're going to be there on the 3rd. We're going to be doing like a 90-minute session. And then we have SequoiaCon on the 4th. And then we'll be in San Diego starting on the 5th. So I'm really looking forward to all the things that we have coming up. And Jim and I hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.